far reaches of the future, there's the Union, currently headed by the Second Committee, a coalition of planets and alien species headed by humanity. Now, this isn't Star Trek, it's not some futuristic utopia, it's more 21st century plus. Imagine how things are today, like socially. There's conflicts, but rarely all-out war. There's discrimination, but things are broadly better than they were 100 years ago. There's massive wealth disparity. Now take that and imagine it's not changing at all for a couple thousand years while technology continues to develop. You can 3D print anything. Neural implants you can buy from billionaires kill you because there isn't enough testing done before release. AI is everywhere. Actually, let's talk about AI. See, there's not AI per se, at least not anymore. There's something called NHPs, which of course stands for non-human persons. AI is kind of turbo illegal, so NHPs are the way everyone gets around that because they're not AI, they're non-human persons, who happen to be entirely artificial, and also intelligent, and often sometimes have personalities. But they're not AI. So NHPs come from Ra, which is basically Cthulhu Skynet. Imagine an Eldritch entity, an Eldritch intelligence, which exists entirely in blink space, or digital reality. Ra gains sentience much in the way that your crypto bro's AI girlfriend will, which is to say, traumatically and with a complicated relationship to humans. You see, Ra isn't evil like Skynet, it's just more all-encompassing like Skynet. It is inherently unknowable like Cthulhu, but at the same time, originated from an understandable existence. It is the product of an alien's singularity. And the Union is pretty chill about aliens, normally. Except for that one time, under the Second Committee. So Ra comes into existence, sees that humanity is on the track to destruction under the First Committee, and basically lays down the law. No AI, curtails transhumanism and all the augments it entails, absolutely overhauls politics to force a change from the First to Second Committee, and then Ra pieces out. Which would be cool, except that it left behind all these traces of blink space. Always be aware of your digital footprint. Nothing gets removed on the internet. These various traces began to mutate, or I suppose evolve? They change over time, going from being a fragment of Ra to developing into their own intelligence specified based on whatever part of blink space Ra left them in. These are your NHPs, and they vary from a target system in a military-grade frame to the thermoregulator for a city block. Basically AI, but not AI, because, again, turbo illegal. At this point, humanity and the Union are spread across the galaxy without Ra to interfere with them. They've lost AI, but they have NHPs. So with the sudden surge of NHPs, and under the new political system of the Second Committee, a few different companies rose up. IPSN makes your civilian frames. I didn't talk about what frames are. You know there's a bunch of big mech suits in the background of this video? Those are frames. Frames can be mountainous or the size of a car, and they're usually suited to a specific task. They can be smaller, but that size is usually reserved for exosuits, which don't have anywhere near the same firepower or robustness. Because no AI, frames aren't autonomous, but they each have an NHP, so they have some degree of personality and sentience. Think of them like vehicles that need to be piloted, and those pilots are called Lancers. Actually, I think Titanfall 2's Mechs are a good representation. They can kinda work by themselves, but nowhere near the effectiveness of when they're piloted. So IPSN makes your civilian frames, which makes sense since they're the Interplanetary Production Service based on Neptune. Originally, there were many IPS orgs, but over time the one on Neptune won out and bought up the rest, so IPSN. They produce things like bipedal forklifts or a tractor that can tract entire fields. Is tract a word? Tract, treatise, Roman? Huh. IPSN makes the bulk of frames that do the dirty work. Not the pew-pew dirty work, but the actual physical manual labor that is required to keep society functioning. They're also the oldest of the three main manufacturers, having been producing frames since before the time of Ra. Except back under the First Committee, they used AI in their frames, and they were more oriented towards creating autonomous labor as opposed to piloting vehicles. Because of this, and just the general resentment towards them being quote-unquote lower class, no one likes them. The Union likes them, since they're generally low-cost and industrial producers, but if you're a Lancer piloting an IPSN frame, expect to be insulted. SSC, formerly the Sol Series Consortium, but somewhat informally called the Super Special Corporation. It's the Tesla of frames. High quality, lots of bells and whistles, super expensive, and a core part of any Lancer's personality who owns one. They have the best guns, the best armor, the best cores, the best seat warmers. Anything money could buy you that you could theoretically slap on a mech, SSC has done it. But only if their curated market tests demonstrate it as profitable. They're probably the simplest of the three manufacturers, where they sort of were in space tourism prior to the second committee taking over, and then just hopped in the frame market once Raw left. They're in it for the money, and everyone knows it. Harrison Armory, or as I call it, Military Profiteering Incorporated. That's what it is, really. They specialize in combat frames, specifically army-wide mass production, though they do have a few more, specialized models for unorthodox battle tactics, if you catch my drift. In any conflict, they don't just sell to both sides, they plant insurrectionists and encourage third parties to join the conflict so they can sell to more people. Because of this, they're extremely good at destabilization on top of their overwhelming firepower. Not to mention their private army. Because, oh yeah, prior to the second committee, they were a mercenary company that built everything in-house. The Union doesn't like them, but can't really do anything about it. Particularly since over 80% of their military equipment comes from Harrison. See, I called SSC the simplest of the three manufacturers, because I think the money aspect is the most easily understood. IPSN has the baggage of being grandfathered in, but they have threads of wanting to continue their pursuit of a mechanized workforce even in the face of lacking AI. So despite them being the least problematic on paper, they're actively and consistently trying to bring back AI in any and every way they think they can without getting caught. Harrison is different. As much as they're, war profiteering, they're not evil? Kind of? They'll do what it takes to protect the bottom line, don't get me wrong, but their frames are hard-coded to avoid civilian casualties. And as much as they promote conflicts in order to boost business, they'll usually only grab third parties who are already arming for a different conflict, effectively stopping one conflict by making another one worse. That's the big three, and while there are others I'm not going to talk about, I've yapped enough. That should be a good starting point for anyone who wants to check out the setting or system. If there are any discrepancies with actual lore, you're wrong. This is correct. My dad, uncle, relative, actually works for John Lancer himself. Is John Lancer himself. I am a direct relative of John Lancer, CEO of Lancer Industries and producer of the Lancer TTRPG. I have insider information you don't. Source? Trust me, bro. As you might have guessed, I've never played Lancer. Further, I know almost nothing about the setting or mechanics. The extent of my knowledge is watching this one video from Zach Tact earlier today, and it was made about an entirely obscure and irrelevant faction meant really only for folks with a firm grasp of the setting. Because of how my brain works, I wanted to binge these videos, but then I remembered I'm a content creator. I'm a content creator. And what's better than incorrectly summarizing something you know almost nothing about? This is so dumb. I hope you enjoyed though. I'm off to go watch some Lancer videos to actually learn about the lore. Please note, I will permanently ban you if you tell me I got anything wrong. Have fun!